Hi there, it's Hal Feldman, and this is the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. To my right, I have the mayor of, wait a minute. I don't have the mayor of Miami-Dade County.
No,
That
far
is,
from it.
that's a little tease. We were supposed to have the mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. Her schedule changed. We will have her scheduling that right now. But I do have the illustrious, the wonderful Javier Gonzalez. We call him Hav, and it's the Hal and Hav Show.
There you go.
Hav, what's up?
I don't know, man. I'm sorry that I disappointed with the.
You did not disappoint,
with the mayor.
but I looked to my right and it wasn't the person
No,
I
it wasn't.
originally expected. So
Here we are.
we always get together just before the show and figure out what is most topical.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I want to emphasize this week is that we would love additional input from our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we love to answer questions.
Yeah, we want to have audience members, whether you're YouTube, your Twitter, your however, your Facebook, whatever you got, send it to us. The producer behind the cameras here will make sure that we know that you're out there, and we will answer those questions. But today is going to be a lot about what we are feeling about the market and the changes that are afoot. But first, I guess I'll start like we always do. What'd you learn this week?
I learned that this show can be viewed in Iceland, which there's a true story, by the way. We traveled out to Iceland this past week, and we're at the hotel, and I figured, you know what, I can do something. So I went to YouTube, set the Hal and Hav show on the YouTube channel. So the next person that's going to come in is going to see us in Iceland. They'll be disappointed, but at the end of the day, I left a little advertising there for us
in Iceland.
So it goes back to the point. This show can be viewed everywhere and anywhere. And you just never know what questions are going to come, but just like anything in our business.
And I would bet there are some people in Iceland that would like to travel to Miami and live among us famous folks.
I did. I actually had that. And they even offered to buy property in Iceland, which is readily available. You just can't construct it. And by the way, it is cold.
You can't construct it.
Yeah, it's very hard to do because of just the material. It's very hard to get the materials in.
So that's what you learned.
That's what I learned. I learned that we can do real estate, and there was a RE/MAX sign
in Iceland.
All right. And they have it on the.
We are
same
a global
billboard.
company.
We are a global company, and that's one of our impressive things that we can refer throughout the whole country and the world.
Yeah.
So
wonderful.
A lot of people don't realize that about us.
All right.
So what'd you learn?
What did I learn? I'm going to do it through travel as well.
Oh.
While you were in Iceland, or maybe slightly off timing wise, I was in New York City.
Nice.
Going back to visit friends that I haven't seen in a long time. Taking my significant other to see things that she hadn't seen before. And here's what I learned. Wherever you are, there's reason to be somewhere else too. And the Miami market is where a lot of people want to come to be.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was showing my significant other things in New York that really interested me for the time that I was there, all the friends that I introduced her to and that I, went and had fun with, they said, hey, I'm going to get down to Miami real soon.
Yeah.
And what it tells us is we are a destination, whether it just be for some leisure time. And then often that leisure time year after year, it weighs on people, and they go, you know what? When I'm finally ready to settle down and I'm finished with work, this is where I want to be. So we are always going to have that market. That's what I learned.
Yeah, I think one of the things we can't stress enough that the fact that we don't pay state income tax, how that affects the retirement side, and as you get older and you're starting to get into a certain financial position.
And although I don't know all the details, there's also a lot of advantages to having an estate down here. When you ultimately pass.
Absolutely.
The state of Florida is very good to families.
Generous, absolutely. We just did our estate planning, and that's one of the things. And a lot of things that you don't have to worry about, a lot of the things you would need to worry about in other states. So yes, it is favorable, and it's also very favorable to businesses.
Yeah.
So those are the things that keep the Sunshine State, sunshine, and it's also really pretty outside. I got back from freezing my bahubus off in Iceland, especially on Sunday, man. We were out there on Sunday. The wind was blowing like at 35 miles an hour. It was 0 degrees. It was brutal. And you come down here and the weather's just been really spectacular. So,
it has. It has.
We always start the show starting to talk about weather. That's always our big thing. You call your friend.
Has what's called evergreen staying power.
Right,
so when people watch this a day from now or 6 years from now, that's going to be really important. When they watch this segment.
That's really sad that somebody can watch this 6 years from now. That's just downright scary. What are you gonna do?
So besides the fact, and we're going to be very brief here, that 7 weeks ago, your demeanor about a particular sports franchise here in the town was very different. Let's briefly go over that because I, like you, being a Philadelphia fan, have just watched my season pass me by.
I think you still have some hope, but we're just out of it, clueless. To lose to Jacksonville was just painful. And even if they traveled, but to lose to a team that had won since September of 2020, that says a lot. So yeah, it's been our seasons are off the rail. So right now it's just like give it a go, just do whatever.
So we won't talk sports on
No,
the show
not
because
again.
one, there's nothing really good to talk about, and two,
absolutely.
neither one of us are that much of an expert.
No, that's it.
But we will talk about real estate.
Yep, sure.
And a lot of people come up to both of us and say, what's going on with the market? And it's been a very interesting, I'll say almost 2 years now. But right now is particularly volatile, I'll say. Yeah. So you have a particular anecdote and something that you noticed in Palmetto Bay, right? So let's start there.
Yeah, we've mentioned in the past shows how we're starting to see the market trend down a little bit, and I think we go back to those that reached, those folks that thought that they could get a certain price for a certain product that wasn't there. They're starting to realize that number's out there because again, we always talked about the fact that if you had a property priced right, you're off the market immediately. So I think these folks are reaching. We have somebody that reached out to us on a property in Shenandoah, and it's somebody reached out to Ashley, so that she could like quote it, and the guy wants like $850, $900,000, and the property just is not worth it.
Right
now, what's always happens for real estate agents is you say, do you take that listing anyway? Because at the end of the day, somebody else is going to take the listing. Or do you set parameters already and say, okay, listen, we'll take this price for a short period of time, but this really is a $699 product, and that's how it's going to end up being. And I think that's what's happening with that reaching. That when you're overreaching, the numbers just aren't there, and the client isn't there. If you're still on mark, we're going to take pictures of the property that I mentioned at $399. If you're on mark, you're going to sell it and trade it really quick. But if you're off that, that's what I've seen. I've seen Palmetto Bay's reaches starting to come down a little bit everywhere, just not there.
And that reach, as you call it, is there all the time, whether we're in a good market, a buyer's market, a seller's market. That reach aspect of, any seller wants to get more, right?
Test the market,
which really means greedy. And I think my house is worth more than everything else. And we can give so many examples. No, your house is worth what the market is going to bear.
Absolutely.
And your house is not paved with gold.
Nope.
So it's worth what it's worth. And I'll try to genericize this because as you have that side of telling the story, I have a similar story. Went out on a listing appointment several months ago, actually. And I'm going to genericize as much as I can. Sat down with a wonderful family.
Right.
And they were looking to help sell their father's home. And the father, is in his later years and needs as much money as possible. I get it. And sat down with them, as I always do to every potential client. I'm extremely honest. Here's my research. And that's the key. You sit down with a seller and they go, I want. And you go, it's nice to hear what you want. Right. I definitely use that as a baseline. But here are the facts that I have collected about what the market is right now. And do you believe, I kind of present it to them, do you believe after you've seen these facts that your home is worth more than what I'm telling you? And in many cases, I'm able to convince people with the facts that, okay, I was wrong. Here's a professional telling me what's right. And in this case, there was so much emotion and love in this family that they said, we hear you. And I think they really did believe me. Right. But they said, but we're going to go after a different price point. Right. And we're not talking about 5% more or 10% more. In the ultimate case, I followed this along. They're asking 40% more than what I believe the property is going to sell for. And that is that reach, that grab that you described in a different property that I think is ultimately going to be a disappointment to them because they have chosen somebody else to work with. And they picked a good person. So don't get me wrong. It wasn't going to be me because I wouldn't take a listing like that. And like you said, it's a debate.
Yeah.
Some agents that are without a lot of work or just need to have listings because that's the way they feel their business is best, will take a listing regardless of whether or not the seller they're working with is in line with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the worst ways to do business.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because we all go through it, and you have a relationship with these sellers, because in our case a lot of them are like referral or contacts.
Yeah.
And you do try to do the education on them, and you say, listen, this is the real numbers, these are the numbers that are out there, and they still want to try to reach for the properties. And I've always dealt with it and said, okay, listen, we have a relationship, it's something that we're going to have to deal with this. So okay, I'll take your number here, but if we're off in 2 weeks, we're done. And I always tell them the same thing. Listen,
well, how do you say that we're done? Like
we're done, it's coming down to my number.
Okay, so they ultimately argue or convince you to take the listing at their price, and then you say, listen, after 2 weeks, my way or the highway. Would you sign a listing agreement if they said I don't even agree to that?
Yeah, no, we don't. Okay. We don't take the deal. And again, it's the same thing. It's like, okay. And I've always told, we had this on another show, I think earlier on, is I say, listen, if I'm that far off, you can always increase your price. It's always one of the things. If I list at this price and all of a sudden you have 37 deals on the table and I was completely off, okay, we'll adjust. But chances are, we're not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And again, it's just, that's where I see the market, and we talked about it. That's where I see that market trending, is that if you're really going after that, it's not going to be there. So we as listing agents have to say, okay, we have to educate. And if we even take the deal, we have to tell them, listen, this spread is not there. And I'll give you 2 weeks on it. No problem. I mean, and again, it's a personal relationship, not when we're doing listing presentations. Like you're going in cold with somebody you have no idea about. But if you have a client that you've worked for years and they have a number in their head, and you say, guys, that number isn't there, but listen, we have a relationship, I'll give it a shot. But understand that if in 2 weeks, I'm not going to waste my time, we're going to come down to the real number that I'm telling you.
Let's now focus on what you see happening right now in the marketplace and what you think the next couple of months are going to be like, because I've obviously been talking on the show and to clients about what I feel the next 6 months are. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I really believe in what I see for the market in the next couple of months. What about you?
Yeah, we have the holidays coming in, so that'll always affect. Then we go into the beginning of the year where we should have the biggest listings, presence coming on. That's been our typical market. We're between January through March. We've talked, and I've talked to other agents, and I think we're seeing it probably 9 months out. When I think we're going to see renewals of leases coming up, and are these folks going to renew, or are they going to take off? And that'll start to happen. Should start to happen probably this month, a little bit later. People may carry over through the holidays, but I think in January you're going to start to see anybody that is on a month to month. And again, I think we're looking more at higher numbers, at the high end numbers. If they have not found something that they can buy or they feel comfortable buying, that's where I see maybe the shift coming. And I would say probably closer to end of spring next year.
And what do you feel, what's the dynamic and the depth of that shift? Are we talking about a couple of percentage points on sale prices? Are we talking about something more catastrophic?
I don't think we see the sale first. I think we see the rental market first.
And what's going to happen with the rental market?
I think it's going to drop. Yeah, it'll drop, because I think as folks start to move away from it, I mean, we have 50% increases in rents, especially on the higher end stuff. You got Park Grove, rented at $4,500, now it's at $9,000. So you've got some crazy numbers that are coming in. Those folks, once they've made their move, if they're going to stay, they're going to want to buy. They're not finding anything to buy. I had somebody just reach out to me on a property that we're going to list at 2.5. Their budget is $9 million. $9 million, and they can't find anything in the Grove. Of course, they're looking for waterfront. I call up a buddy of mine. I say, hey, dude, you want to sell? Because we had spoken recently, and he said, I won't sell for $18 million because everything's good and everything's fine. And it's like, okay, so that is the dynamic. There's just no product for the individual. So, they're renting in the Gables now. So do they rent one more year, or do they just say, call it a day and say, listen, it ain't going to be here? So I think that's what we're going to see beginning of next year towards spring.
Got it. And so I've been at the grocery store
Mhm.
recently, and I'm seeing prices in inflationary
Yeah, absolutely.
methods. They're definitely going up. Gallon of milk,
Yeah.
organic milk, almost $6.
Yeah. And
Um,
if you can find it,
that's true. I don't know about you. One of our favorites is lamb chops, and we cannot get lamb chops anywhere.
Iceland, best lamb in the world.
It's true, except the container ships aren't
Yeah,
bringing it here, so
absolutely.
it's
Yeah, there's
nowhere.
nothing. Yeah,
And
nowhere.
we've looked everywhere.
Yeah.
How do you think that maybe that type of shortages, where we're seeing random outages of product,
Mhm.
and maybe it's just in shipment or the manufacturing thereof is also being affected? Does that ultimately trickle down into the real estate market, or are we really working with a different dynamic?
I think
the houses.
I think there's a different dynamic. I really do.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I tend to think so too.
Yeah.
And you had a period during the height of the pandemic
Yeah.
where building materials were very, very expensive, and a lot of that has started to trend down
Mhm.
again. But builders, are they out building again in force, or are new home starts also going to play into the factors that ultimately make up our South Florida market?
I think it's a great topic because we're looking at it's interesting. There's something coming up in Coconut Grove, which we'll touch on another day. But we've always lacked land, and you're starting to see. If you would have had Mayor Calva here, you would have asked her about the UBL expansion
Mhm.
down in Homestead, which is insane to put more people into harm's way. And we're starting to build into areas that we've had it on the show about a sea level rise and these items coming up. And you look and say, guys, we don't have any land, we don't have any dirt. So the builders that are out there are either repurposing land, trying to get it. And I think that could be something in the future. I think something that we may see is developments as they start to age, be redeveloped again. That's
Yeah.
something that we should have in our radar for anything like, if you look at Kendall, stuff that Palmetto Bay is a good example too. Palmetto Bay's homes, most of them, Pinecrest, they're already past their useful age. So you look at also some of the stuff that was built out in Kendall, and you say, okay, the 70s. I was here in the 70s, and you say now, it's 50 years. So we're starting to see, will that property be redeveloped? Will it be changed out? Is that something that we should keep in mind as realtors in the future, where that is where where you're going to have land to be developed? So.
And when you're talking about redevelopment, are you talking about multifamily, or
Yeah.
are you talking about? Okay, so actually, let's go back to that general topic. You got to typically in Palmetto Bay,
Mhm.
single family
Yeah.
homes, 1970-ish.
Yeah.
That is 50 years.
Yeah.
And you're saying that many of the homes are past their useful
Yeah.
life, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I hear the words over and over again in my head. The house has good bones.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's true.
Yeah, it
Builders back then built
Yeah.
differently than they do today. And although it wasn't to the current code,
Right.
a lot of times they're built very, very well.
Yeah.
And renovation of those homes still is highest and best
Right.
used, rather than wiping
then
it
dropping
clean
them
and
down.
starting again.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the improvements in the building code has actually been on finishes. Not the actual shell of the home, but actually the windows are better. Obviously, you've
Right.
got impact
Roof.
windows you can put in. You're going to be using PVC instead of any cast iron,
Cast
or any,
iron, yeah.
you're going to be using copper instead of galvanized. So the materials have improved. The materials are easier. You now have the homes are smarter homes, but all of those things are things that can be added on. But the actual bones, the shell, I think the shells that were being built back then are as good, if not better, than what's being built now, even for the age. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So let's talk about another topic that was brought to us inside the building before we got on the air. You get into a deal with a friend of yours, and you're like buying a vacation home, and you're going to share it,
Pure chaos.
right? And you've done that because, hey, this is a friend of mine right now.
Yeah.
And we're wanting to do something together, and we find that perfect vacation home, something on the beach that we can alternate weekends or whatever it is. And then over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, you're not so friendly with that person.
Yep.
And one of you has taken more advantage of that piece of property than the other, even though you went in 50-50. And one of you wants to get out.
Yep.
You were talking about a potential way to do that the right way.
Yep.
And a way to do it potentially the wrong way.
Yeah, no,
right?
the wrong way is going in, on a one-on-one 50-50 without really having any legal documentation on it. But I suggest anytime that you're looking at any investment property, just put it under an LLC. It's the easiest. It's $138.50 to manage it. You put it in there and everybody's a 50-50 on the manager. And then in the future, if you do want to sell, you sell that portion of the deal and you sell your portion of the LLC, the shares. It's a lot simpler to do than trying to, work on the personal, and it's not that it's going to go bad. It's that things change. Like you're tired of it. You don't want it anymore. You and I bought this property.
Right.
I'm using it. You're using it. Now you don't use it as much. And why shouldn't you be able to trade it?
Have the flexibility.
For sure. And it's nothing personal, but everything always becomes personal when it's money. That's the reality.
That's true.
So it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter family. It's always going to be personal.
So you're, again, getting back to the general market, January through March, more things coming onto the market.
Yeah.
Are those prices, the list prices, going to be percentage below, above?
I think they'll be below.
Approximately, you get a sense of how much of a dip
we're already starting to see 5-6%, coming down off of the stretches. So we'll probably see maybe 10%. Let's shoot. I mean, we predicted earlier on one of the shows that we were doing in July I think it was July, June, that we would see more properties coming to market during this time. I do still expect that. I expect properties I'm going to put 2 properties out this week. So I think I'm the norm, in an essence. So I think I'll be putting out properties. But then again, right once November starts, that'll pass. Then we'll go through the lull, the Christmas lull, the holiday lull, and then we'll pick it up again in January.
But right now, are you feeling a lull in your activity for both buyers and sellers, or are things relatively normal right now? Because I definitely see something. I want to hear what you have to say first.
I still think it all depends on, we've always talked, are you a listing agent or are you a buyer's agent? And I think, if you're 60-40, 70-30, depending on what it is. What I have seen is that we're going to get listings. I think the buyers are on the sidelines more. I think they're waiting for more inventory. I think they're waiting for something to happen.
A choice, rather than literally all the buyers and looking for Palmetto Bay, looking at 3 houses and going, there's 96 of us for 3 houses.
And I think, again, that's why people re-rented, put their leases back up on. And then even some of the investment properties that I own, I see folks staying in them and then looking to say, okay, maybe we're going to make a move come at the end of the lease, which is next year. So if that is what I see and just a very micro, that's probably the future.
Got it. And so what I'm seeing, both actually for listings and for buyers, is that I'm far less busy now with getting out and actually doing deals.
Right.
What I am spending even more time than I've ever done is those interesting situations. So I've got several buyers that are trying to be very creative in how they're approaching.
Yeah.
I have one listing. It's for a very old 12-unit condo building. And the listing still exists. And I've had a bunch of showings. It's just it's a tired building.
Right.
So very few people are going to want to put in an offer for it. But one of those people that went to go see it came to me on the side and said, listen, I'm an investor. And by the way, that building is not really investable because they don't allow rentals.
Right.
So he said, but I am interested in buying the entire building.
Sure.
And like you were saying, repurposing and renewing a piece of land, this is what is absolutely highest and best use at this point.
Yeah.
The building has, I'm sure, 12 wonderful people living in it, but they don't have reserves. The building is tired.
Yeah.
They don't allow rentals. Who's going to move in there? Yeah. You need a cash buyer, and you need to have somebody that's going to live there and renovate one of those 12 units. Right. And what's the upside?
Yeah, the play is that guy buying all 12.
And so
and owning.
You can imagine a lot of work, a lot of legwork. It may or may not pan out, but if it pans out, it'll pan out well for him. It'll pan out well for me because I'm not doing a sale of one unit. I'm doing a sale of essentially 12 individual units.
And I think that's a good point that you put in, is that a lot of there's opportunities at every level and with every product that you see. Why can't you look at a 12-unit, a 4-unit building and say, listen, well, let's make a play on the full building.
Yeah.
And I think, we can't, put something in front of us that kind of kills our, sight line. So you got to be very creative. And, it's always, I learned this in retail years ago. And one of my bosses once told me, Javi, look for your problems when business is good, not when business is bad. And I think as business is good, start looking for opportunities, start looking for other things that you can do, even though, you have your pipeline coming through full.
Yeah, absolutely.
But keep looking. And that's a hard part of this gig that people do not realize. I mean, the folks that we work with just don't understand how hard that pipeline is to maintain and to keep it active.
So speaking of things that buyers and sellers don't realize is that, we make our money when deals happen.
Yep.
And a lot of times sellers in particular aren't real happy with the money that they are shelling out
Right.
at the time of the closing because, we can't be worth that much
Right.
money.
Right.
And the reality is both for buyers and sellers and even renters, we provide value that they don't see. We are a relationship
Mhm.
between ourselves and
Mhm.
whoever we're representing.
Yep.
And we have, a deep knowledge of the market
Mhm.
and all kinds of little things. So I think maybe with the last couple of minutes of the show, I'd love for you, and I'm throwing this curveball at
Yeah.
you, some knowledge that you have that you've learned over the years
Yeah.
that you impart from time to time to your clients that, my God, this is incredibly valuable. I'm happy to give it to you because of the relationship, but they don't even realize how great the information is.
I think one of the things that sellers, especially if you've dealt with them for a long, long time, they look at and they always say, what have you done for me lately? And I always try to explain, hey, listen, I've managed the property for 10 years, 12 years. I've kept people in this property. I've handled situations for 10 years. If you break it down by what I'm making on this commission, it kind of strikes down the amount of hours that I put in. And I think that's what people don't realize. People think we just go in and open doors. And again, every agent has a different strategy, has a different. Mine has always been customer related, customer based, and management based. And I know that if I'm managing 50, 60 properties, and again, it's not professional management. It's just, making sure that we do the leases and we do the basic stuff. We don't collect rent or anything like that, but you're a point of contact. When something's going to go bad, you're the first one that's going to be there and to take that brunt, to take that customer hit. And some people realize that and give you the credit for 10, 12 years of management. And some don't. Some say, oh, you're going to make X amount of dollars on it.
Right.
Well, every time you called me at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night because the tenant said this or that, or you needed this or you needed that, something personal. I've bailed people out of jail. So it's all out there.
That's a topic for another
we've
show.
done, yeah. So people don't understand what we are. We're in a relationship, and I try to keep it professional. But at the end of the day, it's what have you done for me lately? But look back at what we've done.
And so I'll give my quick scenario for a buyer. They walk into a house wondering if that home stylistically works for them, and they get either a cold or a warm feeling about the house when they walk through it. And they're looking horizontally this way. And when I walk into a home, typically I'm walking around
looking up
like this. And there's a reason for that, because you and I both know technical things about what to look for in a house. And even before we go in, if I see the eaves of a home looking a certain way, I'll go find a stick and I'll start poking. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm finding out if there's WDO going on outside this house before we even walk in.
Golf ball.
Golf ball on tiles. Is that what you were about to say? Does anybody know that trick?
No, a little trick.
So take a golf ball. I have one in the trunk of my car at all times. And if you want to see if the tiles were properly adhered to the concrete that's below, drop a golf ball.
You'll hear it clear it.
Yep.
Also spalling, and also you can do it for balconies and condos.
Yeah, there's
just don't make sure the ball doesn't bounce over the side and go down 40 stories.
So I guess our wrap up here is that, if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, find an agent that you have a personality match, that knows the marketplace that you're trying to either sell or buy in, and go with them. Because like Hav, like myself, there are great agents out there. We can provide the answers for you. And we didn't get any questions this time around, but please make sure to tune into us every single week. We're here to help you as a resource, and we love doing it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we're not in Iceland or New York, we're here.
It's all about real estate
Exactly.
dreams. This is what I take care of.
Yep.
This is what Hav takes care of. And until next week, what do we say?
We say, what is it? I don't know what we
Goodbye.
say. Goodbye. See ya.